This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviat. Tonight we are talking about nursing home negligence. Eventually you or loved ones are going to wind up in a nursing home and trying to pick a good one, trying to rate them ahead of time and figure out which one is appropriate for your loved one and which ones to stay away from. Tonight's your chance to call in and ask. The 31 Law Call number, 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air, or you can text us to that same number. We've got some of your texts coming in. You can also email questions. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com. And when we get to a show that's on point, we pull them out. You can send an email on any kind of legal question, and we will have some. We've got some of your email questions tonight. We've also got Michael Timberlake from Timberlake, League & Brooks tonight. Good to have you here.
Great to be here.
Part of Happy Father's Day.
Well,
Hope you had a good Father's Day.
I hope everybody's had, a good day and enjoyed, some time with their kids and all that good stuff.
Part of Father's Day, we start thinking about seniors and loved ones, and so we're going to be talking about nursing home negligence, and you guys see a number of cases and the terrible things that can happen. Most nursing homes are great, but there are some with problems.
Yeah, typically what we see is that, they kind of tend to ride a bit of a roller coaster. Sometimes the care is very, very good. Sometimes the care is not. When the care tends to decline, it tends to be across the board where all the residents tend to suffer. And it's just got to be one of those things that we look out for. We're going to talk about, the things that can happen, how you can try to avoid those types of things, the things that you need to be aware of when you're going in to look at a facility, and, the kinds of, cases that we've handled over the years in terms of, what can happen in a nursing home, what we don't want to happen.
And while we get some of your calls locked in, we've got tonight's You Make the Law Call video. So you also handle personal injury cases like car accidents. This one's not from the United States, but we've got, okay,
ouch.
You see car accidents like that all the time.
Sure.
So when you're looking at something like that, we want to say these little rules of thumb. If you're the person that's turning, you've got the responsibility. What do you see for somebody that does this kind of practice? What are you watching for in the videos?
The first thing you're looking at is what are the traffic control devices at the intersection? Is it a situation where one car clearly had the right of way with a traffic control device that was was one light red, one light green, was it yellow? Were they trying to go through the yellow? Had the light already turned red before they turned? Essentially, you're looking at a situation here where it appears that the darker car was moving through a light that traffic control device that had turned red, and the other car was trying to, was already approached in the middle of the intersection and was taking a left. So I think you can't go through a red light regardless, so that's kind of typically what you see is the opposite. Is somebody that turns in somebody's path is at fault. In this case, I think it's the other car.
Sometimes I think that lights may be mistimed. Are we so sophisticated that you can pull records from individual traffic lights around here?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the traffic control devices that you see in Huntsville are they're either tripped on a wire system, or they have some people think they're cameras, but they're really just vehicle detection type systems that sit up on top of the frame for the traffic lights. Those you can't get video or anything like that from intersections, but what you can get is the timing of the light. So this light has a turn signal that stays on for this amount of time. When that turn signal's on, the other light is definitely red. The turn signal will go blinking yellow, which is something that happens kind of confusing at times. You got to watch out for that. And then sometimes some lights are set up differently so that there's no turn arrow. And I've had a case recently with, that I thought we were going to be able to prove that my client was not at fault, and I got the light sequence, and unfortunately it was, didn't.
Okay. Tonight we're focusing on nursing home negligence and senior issues, so calling your questions, 536-0077. Talk to us a little bit about arbitration agreements.
Right.
So if I'm thinking you're about to tell me I can't just sue a nursing home, probably.
Right, and that's, unfortunately, this is something that we have been trying to push for a long time in terms of the rules to not allow arbitration in nursing home settings, but the powers that be don't seem to want to change the rules, or they one administration will want to change the rules, the next administration won't change the rules. But essentially, arbitration, mandatory binding arbitration, is a process where instead of filing your claim in court, you can file your claim in court. You do file it in circuit court, just like a normal case, but then you are compelled to go to arbitration. And essentially what arbitration does is it takes your right away to try your case to a jury, and instead you are trying your case to an arbitrator, which can be one person or maybe a panel of 3 persons, but it's typically lawyers, retired judges, people that are not your peers. You're not trying it to a jury of your peers. You're trying it to basically educated people who have been in this type of environment. And we think from a litigator's perspective that it is it's much less effective for the people that are injured to try it to lawyers, because we're jaded and we've seen a bunch of stuff, and it's and we're typically more technical necessarily than a jury would be.
Yeah.
So you take that right away to sue in court. Goes to an arbitrator, and
that's the decision.
That's the decision. You can't appeal it typically. Well, you can appeal it for ridiculous reasons, but most of the time it's not an appealable decision in front of the arbitrator. You go try your case. It's over. It's done with.
Okay.
That's it.
We got this question in from Don, and it's on arbitration.
Sure.
He says, I had to sign an arbitration agreement when my mom went in a nursing home 6 years ago. Is that agreement still enforceable? And what does it mean for me? Okay, well, I've got a question. If he's signing it for his mom didn't sign the arbitration agreement, it sounds like. Does that make a difference?
Well, it can make a difference. Basically, and this was a case that I took all the way to the Alabama Supreme Court on a case where there's a doctrine that they rely upon that they just kind of made up called apparent authority. So they said if a family member has apparent authority for someone when they're signing them into a nursing home, then that can be valid so long as the person that they're signing into the nursing home is competent at the time. And so that's the case that I took up involved someone who was not competent when they were signed into a nursing home by a family member who didn't have a power of attorney and only had apparent authority. And then we were able to get the judge's ruling overturned and get the case out of arbitration.
Okay.
But essentially, if a family member signs in, if they have a power of attorney, or if they sign somebody in and that person that's going into the nursing home is competent and they understand that they're going into a nursing home, then more than likely the arbitration agreement's going to be valid and in effect.
Okay. We got this email question from RJ. RJ says, is there a way to find out whether a nursing home is safe and properly staffed before I allow my mother to move in there? So if you have a family member and you're looking at having to do something, what steps would you be taking to figure it out?
Well, I mean, it's difficult because, like I said, the care tends to wax and wane. One thing you can do is you can talk to people that know people that work in the skilled nursing environment, the long-term care environment is the first place you look at, because those people know which facilities are in the local community or have a good reputation or a better reputation than others. The second thing you can do is look to Medicare.gov. There's a 5-star rating system that comes into play that they use. Now, whether that's up to speed all the time, especially in this day and age of the federal government, I just wouldn't rely upon that. The nursing homes are supposed to be inspected and annually, and they're supposed to be inspected when there is a complaint made, a specific complaint against a nursing home arising out of an event. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, but you can get the survey information from the last time that it was surveyed. That's available online, and that's one of the things that you want to look at before you put somebody in a skilled nursing facility.
Yeah, they ought to give you a tour, right? Will they give you a tour?
They'll give you a tour, and the first thing I say is if it smells bad when you tour, it's going to smell really bad when you're not there.
Okay. We've got Jean on the line with a question from Hazel Green. Hi, Jean. Thanks for calling. What's your question? Hi, Jean. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight? Hey, Jean. Are you still with us?
Yes, I have a friend that was in a nursing home, and some of the employees beat her up.
Oh, my.
And she's still having problems with that beating. What should she do about it?
And did you say this was a friend or a loved one?
Yes,
And she was beaten by employees there.
Oh gosh, that's terrible. Well, the first thing that you should do, you should contact the Alabama Department of Public Health, and there is a complaint hotline, and you can fill it out online, or you can call in the phone number and make a complaint against the nursing home. Provide them the specific information that you have about the event and the resident and any family members that are involved in the situation, and they will come out and investigate the nursing home and this event, and they'll look at the medical records, they'll look at the chart. They have the ability to interview, caregivers and do preliminary investigations. Whereas, if we come out and file a lawsuit, it can be months before we get that information, just because you have to file a lawsuit, you have to file discovery, you have to go through a process. By that time, some of the things can disappear. The state can come in and investigate almost immediately. So if there's a situation where somebody's been caused harm, and especially puts other residents in immediate harm, the state will take it seriously and they'll come out and investigate. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is make sure the state does come out and do that. Now, when we're kind of looking at these cases, we've seen this before, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah, that there's been some type of employee abuse at the facility.
Wow.
And you say, well, how can that ever happen? Well, there's a nurse registry where they can look up, when they hire people, they can look up to make sure that nurses don't have a background of this. But if the nursing home could not have known that this was going to happen, then they may not be responsible for the incident. If you just get somebody who this is not, they weren't told to do this. This is not part of their job.
That's not the job description.
It's not a situation where somebody fell while they were trying to assist somebody.
Yeah.
This is an intentional injury. That can be a situation where the nursing home may not be responsible.
Okay. We're going to take a break. Gene, good luck. Make that report. We'll be back, and we're going to talk about some things like powers of attorneys, wills, and somebody had a question about what's a quitclaim deed. We'll get to that too. Be right back.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. Tonight we're talking about nursing home negligence. Michael Timberlake's here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. We got a text question in, so you can call in 536-0077. You can also text us. Somebody texting in and says, is there still a 5-year to transfer family home before? And it cuts off at that, but you know what they're talking about. What are they talking about?
Basically, so one of the things that not a lot of people understand or know is that skilled nursing care, long-term care, is not going to be typically covered by Medicare. Medicare will typically cover a 21-day admission in a facility for rehab following hospitalization, and it can be extended, but after that point, Medicare won't pay for long-term care. So if you're going into a nursing home and you're going to be there for an extended period of time or an indefinite period of time, you've got to figure out how to pay for that. It can be $6,000 to $8,000 a month, and that's just a lot more than people have money to come up with to pay. So people will look to, what are the resources that are available. If you don't have long-term care insurance, then you look to, okay, can I qualify for Medicaid? You can qualify for Medicaid, but typically you have to have an income of, monthly income of less than $2,000, and basically, not have any assets. So, there's situations where people have to sell their house, if they don't have a spouse that's living in the house, and then they have to spend that money down before they would qualify for Medicaid. And a lot of people will call us and say, well, can I just transfer my house to somebody? Can I just give it to my my kids or give it to my loved ones? Well, you can transfer it, but you're not going to qualify for Medicaid if you make that transfer within 5 years. So if you try to go in to qualify for Medicaid, they're going to look at everything that you've done with your money and your assets in the last 5 years, and to the extent that you have made transfers, you're going to be disqualified for Medicaid. So you're not going to qualify at that point in time. You could qualify at some point in the future, but for a house, it could be a long time.
Yeah.
So really, if you're looking at the situation, you're trying to figure out what to do, long-term care insurance is the first thing that we're going to do. But if you don't think you can do that or you can't afford that, then you really need to meet with a lawyer about doing some kind of estate planning so that you can transfer your assets out before you get to the point where you're going to need long-term care.
At least 5 years.
At least 5 years.
You need to be at least 5 years out.
And it happens quicker than you think.
Yeah.
And otherwise, people have to sell their homes.
So Gene had that call in before talking about somebody being harmed at a facility, and we're not going to name we got a text message, we're not going to name the facility.
Sure.
I witnessed an elderly resident being beaten at, and they tell us the name of the facility. My mother told me not to report it or say anything, or they'd make it worse for the patient. Needless to say, she didn't stay at that facility much longer, but hence the problem, because people don't report it out of fear.
Yeah.
So if you make a report, are they going to know who's reporting this?
Well, I mean, obviously, if it's a family member that's injured, they're going to know that the family member is the one that did it. But that's not, what we find is once the state is involved, once they've made the phone call to tell them, look, we're on the case, then your care is probably not going to decline. It's probably going to get better. Now, if you're involving a situation where you've got a particular resident or a particular employee that was obviously abusing other patients, that's going to be something that the nursing home is going to want to try to deal with immediately, and either suspend that person or try to handle that situation. But it's just, you're going to have to kind of deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
You're talking about the 5-year rule. So somebody writes in and says, is my house safe from Medicare? And I think they mean from Medicaid.
Sure.
In a trust. Okay, so first you got to say what a trust is, and then does putting it in a trust, does that protect you?
No.
No.
No. I mean, you're like I said, there are some ways that you can do that, but if you, if you put the house in a trust, as long as you maintain or have the control of that trust, then it is not, it's not going to protect you from Medicaid.
Okay. Talk to us about powers of attorney and wills and how that plays into nursing home negligence. So you're saying if a person who is putting someone in a nursing home has a power of attorney, that kind of lends credibility to them being able to make decisions for that person. Sure. Would you strongly recommend everybody have these powers of attorney or wills, or what do you recommend people have when they're getting toward the senior years?
We tell everybody, says, look, if you're over, I don't know, 40, if you have kids, or if you have any significant amount of assets to leave behind, what you need to do is everybody needs to have a will that says, to the extent that I don't have designated beneficiaries or hold real estate with right of survivorship, then any assets that I have are to be distributed to these people. There are lots of things you can do to avoid probating a will in Alabama, and you should try to take advantage of that if you can. But probating a will is not a bad thing. It's not hard. It's not expensive in Alabama. But so everybody needs a will to have that, so that they can take care of that. Otherwise, the state gets to tell people, who gets what, and that may not be the way you want it to flow out. Second thing everybody needs is a power of attorney, somebody that can make decisions for them in the event that they're unable to make decisions for themselves. Should be a loved one, someone you trust, because they can do whatever you could do with your money if they have a power of attorney, but you want to have that. You want to have an advance directive, which says, if I'm incapacitated and I can't make health care decisions for myself, this is what I want done. And then finally, you want to have a health care power of attorney, which gives someone else the right to make health care decisions for you. Tell your doctor, I've looked at their advance directive. They don't want this care. Doctor, don't give it to them.
We got a text question. Okay,
Sure.
do I need to go through an attorney to become legally power of attorney for my 75-year-old terminally ill spouse? And if she does have to go through an attorney, how do you get it approved?
Yeah, you don't have to have it approved in any way. A power of attorney is a simple document that most any attorneys can do for a very fair rate. If you if you can't afford it, most of the time, like in Madison County, there's a Madison County Volunteer Law Program. You can contact a local bar society, and typically an attorney would probably, in this situation, would probably do it for you pro bono. If you can't find somebody, call my office. But that's something in a situation where somebody's terminal, that's probably something you want to get in place.
Text message, a lady was coming, she's talking about a nursing home.
Right.
Lady was coming out of a bathroom, slipped and fell on concrete floor. The hip was broken all the way across. The doctor there would not sign up for her to get a hip replacement surgery, saying she's too old. She's in her 60s. That's surprising, right?
Wow.
Do something, complain to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting situation. One is, we deal with falls all the time in nursing homes. That's one of the most common types of things that we see. Sometimes the nursing home can avoid the fall, sometimes they can't. And so just the fact that they fell in a nursing home does not make the nursing home automatically responsible. But in many cases, we can find evidence that said they shouldn't have done what they've done, what they did, and that resulted in the fall. In terms of, some doctor being able to direct the medical care, I don't think so. I mean, that sounds to me like it's more like an insurance type situation that you're dealing with, or you may be dealing with an orthopedic surgeon that's concerned about her overall health and doesn't think the surgery is going to be beneficial, or doesn't think, or she may have other things that would come into play. But in that case, I'd go see another surgeon and get a second opinion, because that doesn't sound right.
And you said medical providers are not required, medical facilities are not required to have liability insurance, nursing homes. Yeah. Tell me what you're telling.
Yeah.
This is surprising.
One of the biggest challenges that we have in these situations is nursing homes in Alabama are not required to have any sort of liability insurance. You can have $25,000 in liability insurance to operate a motor vehicle. Nursing homes are not required to have any liability insurance in Alabama.
Surprising.
And they, use that to their advantage in litigation when they're dealing with claims.
We're going to take a break. Be right back talking more about nursing home negligence. Stay with us. If you haven't gotten your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Michael Timberlake with Timberlake, League & Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon practices family law. Sharon practices family law right here in the Tennessee Valley. 256-539-7337. She handles child custody, divorce, child support modifications, all kinds of situations that involve family law.
The fun stuff. Okay, last question. Cameras. Can I put cameras in my nursing home room with my mom or grandma, and do I have to tell anybody?
No, you don't have to tell anybody. Typically, we see people do this. Some facilities have a prohibition against it, but I would look into that. If they have a prohibition against it, I'd look at another facility. We've been able to substantiate some bad care with a camera.
There's your sign if they don't want it. Thanks for all your questions. We'll see you next week.